Native Americans survived temperatures that wiped out crops and kingdoms, armed with nothing but animal hides and genius engineering. What secret design made the teepee a masterclass in survival science? You know that feeling when you're setting up a camping tent and it takes forever? Well, Native Americans would have chuckled at our struggles. They could put up an entire teepee in under an hour. Not kidding. These weren't your flimsy weekend camping shelters either. We're talking about homes that could house an entire family and withstand prairie storms that would make your grandfather's war stories seem tame. The secret? Years of practice and a design so brilliant it makes modern engineering look clunky. Here's what blew my mind when I first learned this. A typical family teepee needed 10 to 20 wooden poles, each one carefully selected and shaped. But here's the kicker. They didn't just grab any old stick. These poles had to be straight, strong, and exactly the right length. Think of it like choosing golf clubs, except your life literally depended on making the right choice. The covering required 12 to 16 buffalo hides, all sewn together with sinew thread. Now, before you start thinking this sounds like a lot of work, remember something important. These people moved constantly, following bison herds across hundreds of miles. Their entire survival strategy depended on being able to pack up and move faster than a modern family loading a minivan for vacation. But wait, it gets better. The whole thing was designed around that iconic cone shape for a reason. Wind hits a cone and slides right off, unlike our square houses that catch every gust like a sail. Smart, right? The smoke hole at the top wasn't just for show either. This ingenious opening could be adjusted using two flaps controlled by external poles. Too much smoke? Open it wider. Rain coming in? Close it partially. It was like having a prehistoric thermostat that actually worked better than some modern ones I've wrestled with. What really gets me is the teamwork involved. Setting up a teepee was a family affair with everyone knowing exactly what to do. The men would position the main support poles, while women stretched and secured the hide covering. Kids would gather stones for the fire ring and collect kindling. Makes those family assembly projects from furniture stores look like amateur hour. And here's something that would make any contractor jealous. No foundation needed. These structures went up on any reasonably flat ground, from prairie grassland to rocky hillsides. Try doing that with a traditional house. The whole system was so efficient that some tribes could break camp, travel 20 miles, and set up again before sunset. Imagine packing your entire house, moving to a new city, and being settled in by dinner time. Of course, building the teepee was just the beginning. The real genius showed when winter hit and temperatures dropped low enough to freeze your morning coffee solid. Picture trying to stay warm in a tent during a blizzard. Now imagine doing it with technology from 600 years ago. Sounds impossible, right? Well, Native Americans had this figured out better than most modern campers. The teepee's conical shape wasn't just for looks, it was pure physics in action. That pointed top shed snow like a champion, preventing dangerous weight buildup that could collapse other structures. Meanwhile, the slanted walls created a natural wind deflection system that would make modern architects jealous. But here's where it gets really clever. Native Americans used double-layered construction that puts your winter coat to shame. The outer layer, called the teepee cover, faced the elements head-on. Then came an inner liner that hung about 6 feet high around the interior walls. This created an insulation pocket that trapped warm air like a thermal blanket. The genius didn't stop there. They positioned these shelters with the back-facing prevailing winds, using the landscape as a natural windbreak. Smart placement near hills or tree lines gave extra protection. It's like they had their own weather app, except it was generations of survival knowledge passed down through families. During those brutal little Ice Age winters, the base got special treatment. Snow wasn't the enemy. It became an ally. Packed snow around the bottom edge created an additional insulation barrier that sealed out drafts. Some tribes even used sod or earth banking, free insulation, courtesy of Mother Nature herself. The interior setup was equally brilliant. That central fire pit wasn't just randomly placed, it sat in the perfect spot to heat the entire space efficiently. The smoke rose naturally through the adjustable smoke flaps at the top, which could be moved based on wind direction. No carbon monoxide poisoning here, folks. Animal hides served double duty as both structure and insulation. Buffalo robes lined the walls, creating cozy sleeping areas that trapped body heat. Bear furs made excellent floor coverings that insulated from the frozen ground below. Every piece had a purpose. Then there's the adjustable ventilation system that would impress any HVAC technician. Those ear-like flaps at the top could be positioned to create proper airflow while maintaining heat. Too much smoke? Adjust the flaps. Wind changing direction? Move them again. It was climate control, Stone Age style. The interior temperature could stay comfortable even when outside temperatures dropped well below freezing. Some accounts describe tippies staying warm enough that people could work in shirt sleeves while snow piled up outside. That's insulation engineering at its finest. What made this system truly remarkable was how it balanced warmth retention with necessary ventilation. Sealing everything tight keeps heat in but creates dangerous air quality. Too much ventilation and you freeze. Native Americans found that perfect middle ground. But staying warm was only half the battle during those harsh little Ice Age winters. The real magic happened around the central fire, where entire communities gathered to share more than just heat. Walking into a teepee during those bone-chilling nights was like entering the heart of civilization itself. Right smack in the middle sat a fire pit, not tucked away in some corner like your modern living room fireplace, but commanding center stage like a diva at the opera. This wasn't just any old campfire either. Native Americans had turned fire management into an art form that would make today's thermostats jealous. The flames provided steady, reliable heat that radiated outward in all directions, warming every inch of the teepee's interior. Makes sense, right? Why stick a heat source against one wall when you can put it where everyone benefits? But here's where it gets interesting. That central fire served triple duty: cooking, heating, and lighting all rolled into one efficient package. Try doing that with your electric stove. Families gathered around this focal point for meals, storytelling, and those crucial survival discussions about tomorrow's hunt or the weather patterns they'd observed. The real genius lay in how they managed the fire itself. Keeping flames alive during brutal winters wasn't as simple as flicking a lighter. Well, obviously, lighters wouldn't be invented for several centuries. Instead, they became masters of ember preservation. Ashes weren't just swept away and forgotten. They carefully banked hot coals under layers of ash, creating a slow-burning foundation that could reignite quickly when needed. This technique saved precious fuel and eliminated the dangerous struggle of starting fires from scratch in freezing conditions. And the weird part is, this method often worked better than matches in extreme cold. Then there's the social aspect that modern folks completely miss. Fire wasn't just a tool. It became the beating heart of community life. Children learned essential skills by watching adults tend the flames. Stories passed down through generations around these fires, preserving crucial survival knowledge for future winters. The warmth created bonds stronger than any family room ever could. When your survival depends on cooperation, sharing that central heat source builds trust and unity. Everyone contributed fuel. Everyone benefited from the warmth. Everyone understood their role in keeping the life-giving flames burning. Let's not forget the psychological comfort factor. During those endless winter nights when howling winds threatened to tear through the strongest shelters, the steady crackle of burning wood provided emotional warmth alongside physical heat. That dancing light pushed back more than just cold. It held darkness and fear at bay, too. The fire pit also created natural air circulation within the teepee. Hot air rose through the smoke hole while fresh air entered at ground level, preventing the stale, suffocating atmosphere that could develop in sealed spaces. But staying warm was only half the battle during the Little Ice Age. These resourceful people had to eat, and finding food when everything froze solid required some seriously creative thinking. When winter hit hard during the Little Ice Age, Native Americans couldn't just run to the grocery store. They had to get creative with Mother Nature's frozen pantry. And boy, did they figure out some tricks that would make modern survivalists jealous. First up, underground storage. Think of it as nature's refrigerator, but way more reliable than your uncle's old Frigidaire in the garage. They dig these storage pits deep into the earth where the temperature stayed consistently cool. The ground acted like a giant freezer, keeping meat fresh for months without spoiling. Smart, right? They'd line these pits with stones or bark, creating perfect little root cellars that even Martha Stewart would envy. But here's where it gets interesting. Hunting during the Little Ice Age wasn't like a casual weekend trip to the woods. These folks had to become weather detectives. They tracked animal migration patterns like ancient meteorologists following herds of bison and deer as they moved to warmer areas. When animals got scarce, they adapted faster than a politician changes positions during election season. Ice fishing became their winter lifeline. While most of us complain about scraping ice off our windshields, these resourceful people were cutting holes through thick lake ice to catch fish below. They used traditional spears, nets, and ingenious trap systems that worked even when they weren't standing there. Talk about passive income, except instead of money, they were earning dinner. Then there's pemmican, the original energy bar. This stuff made modern protein bars look like candy. They'd mix dried meat with fat and berries, creating a superfood that lasted months without refrigeration. 1 pound of this concentrated goodness could keep a person going for days. It was like nature's MRE, but actually edible. Ground nuts and seeds became winter gold. While we might turn our noses up at acorns, these survival experts knew exactly which nuts packed the most calories and healthy fats. They'd process them into flour, meal, or eat them roasted. Every calorie counted when temperatures dropped below freezing for months. And here's something that'll blow your mind. They used snow as a cooking ingredient, not just for drinking water, though that was important too. They packed snow around food to create steam cooking methods, essentially turning frozen precipitation into a kitchen tool. Who needs a pressure cooker when you've got a snowbank? The really clever part? They planned these food strategies around their teepee lifestyle. Everything had to be portable, lightweight, and efficient. No point having a feast if you couldn't move to follow the herds or escape harsh weather. Well, all this food, preparation, and survival thinking required some serious gear to keep their bodies warm while they worked. When winter temperatures dropped to bone-chilling levels during the Little Ice Age, Native Americans couldn't just run to the nearest clothing store. They had to get creative with what nature provided. And boy, did they master the art of staying warm. The secret wasn't just throwing on more layers like your grandmother suggests every winter. It was understanding how different animal hides work together. Buffalo hide formed the outer shell, thick, durable, and about as windproof as you could get back then. Think of it as nature's version of a winter coat, except this one came with its own built-in heating system. But here's where it gets interesting. Underneath that buffalo exterior, they'd layer rabbit fur or deer hide with the fur facing inward. Smart move, right? The rabbit fur trapped warm air close to the skin while the smooth deer hide prevented chafing. It's like having a personal climate control system that runs on body heat instead of electricity. Now, making these garments wasn't exactly a weekend hobby project. Women used bone needles. Yes, actual bones carved into sewing tools and sinew thread pulled from animal tendons. Makes your complaints about threading a modern needle seem pretty silly, doesn't it? These bone needles were incredibly sharp and durable, lasting for years with proper care. Footwear deserves its own chapter in the survival handbook. They'd stuff moccasins with dried moss, rabbit fur, or even grass for insulation. Some tribes created double-layered boots with an air pocket between the layers. Brilliant engineering that would make modern boot designers jealous. The outer layer repelled moisture, while the inner layer kept feet toasty warm. Let's not forget about those famous fur-lined parkas. The hood design was pure genius. They'd position wolf or wolverine fur around the face opening because these animals' fur naturally repels ice formation from breathing. Ever notice how your glasses fog up in winter? These folks solved that problem centuries ago without any fancy technology. Here's something that might surprise you. They often wore looser-fitting clothes rather than tight ones. Loose garments trapped more warm air, creating better insulation. Modern outdoor enthusiasts are just now catching up to this ancient wisdom. Tight clothing restricts blood flow and actually makes you colder, something Native Americans figured out long before scientists explained why. Women became absolute masters at preparing hides too. They'd spend days softening tough buffalo skin using a mixture of animal brains and bone tools. Sounds gross, but the natural oils made the leather incredibly supple and water-resistant, better than any chemical treatment available today. The whole process required incredible patience and skill. One winter coat might take weeks to complete, but it would last for years. Pretty good return on investment when your life depends on staying warm. But even the best clothing couldn't solve every winter challenge they faced during those brutal Little Ice Age years. When the Little Ice Age hit around the 14th century, it wasn't exactly what you call a gentle winter vacation. We're talking about roughly 500 years of seriously cranky weather that made regular winters look like a tropical getaway. Native American tribes faced temperatures that dropped so low even the bison probably started complaining. But here's the thing about survival. It's not about having the fanciest gear. It's about being smarter than the weather trying to kill you. The first trick? Snow became their best friend instead of their enemy. Tribes learned to pack snow around the base of their teepees like nature's own insulation foam. Think of it as the world's first energy-efficient home improvement project, except instead of calling a contractor, you grabbed a shovel and got to work. Makes sense, right? Snow traps air, and trapped air keeps heat from escaping. These weren't just lucky guesses either. Generations of trial and error taught them that a good snow barrier could mean the difference between a cozy night and becoming a human popsicle. Then there's the ice fishing game, which became absolutely crucial when regular hunting got tougher. Picture this. You're standing on a frozen lake, the wind's howling like an angry spirit, and you've got to catch dinner through a hole in ice thick enough to park a modern truck on. Native fishermen developed specialized spears and knew exactly where fish gathered under the ice during winter months, but the weird part is how they turned the coldest months into their most productive time. While Mother Nature was throwing her winter tantrum, tribes were busy perfecting their survival toolkit. They'd scout animal tracks in snow, learning migration patterns that would make modern wildlife biologists jealous. Knowledge of winter plants became like having a secret menu at your favorite restaurant. Certain bark could prevent scurvy. Specific roots stayed nutritious even when frozen solid. Pine needle tea provided vitamin C when fresh fruits were just a distant summer memory. Well, here's where it gets really impressive. Trapping during the Little Ice Age required reading signs that most people today couldn't spot with a magnifying glass. Animal behavior changed with the harsh climate, so hunters adapted their techniques faster than a teenager adapts to new social media trends. Some tribes developed early warning systems by watching how animals prepared for storms. When squirrels started hoarding extra nuts or birds changed their usual patterns, experienced scouts knew to prepare for weather that could last weeks. The resilience these communities showed wasn't just about individual toughness, it was about entire societies adapting their lifestyle to climate changes that would challenge any modern city. Let's not forget, though, surviving the Little Ice Age wasn't just about the cold months. When winter finally loosened its grip, tribes had to transform completely. When winter hit the plains like a frozen sledgehammer, you might think Native American tribes just hunkered down and waited for spring. Wrong! These folks turned the coldest months into their busiest workshop season. Picture your garage during a weekend project, except replace the power tools with bone needles and stone scrapers. Men spent countless hours reshaping arrowheads that had dulled during autumn hunts. They'd sit by the fire, methodically chipping away at flint, creating points sharper than my mother-in-law's tongue. Each arrow had to be perfect. There were no second chances when facing a charging buffalo. Women became the original multitaskers during these frozen months. They'd work animal hides until they were softer than modern leather jackets, all while keeping one eye on simmering stews. The hide preparation process was like a medieval spa treatment, scraping, soaking, stretching, and rubbing with animal brains. Yes, brains. It sounds gross, but those enzymes work better than any chemical tanner. But here's where it gets interesting. Winter didn't shut down commerce. It just changed the delivery method. Trade routes stayed surprisingly active, with hardy traders moving goods on snowshoes and sleds. Salt from distant lakes, obsidian from volcanic regions, and shells from far-off oceans still changed hands. These winter merchants were tougher than Amazon delivery drivers, and they never complained about the weather. Speaking of transportation, this was prime time for building snowshoes and sleds. The snowshoe construction process required patience that would make a saint weep. Each wooden frame had to be bent perfectly, then strung with sinew in intricate patterns. Get the tension wrong, and you'd sink into snow faster than a bad investment. Then there's the social aspect that modern folks often miss. These winter workshops weren't silent, grim affairs. Stories flowed as freely as the work itself. Elders shared hunting wisdom, while young people learned by watching and listening. It was like having YouTube tutorials, except the instructor was sitting right next to you and had actually survived everything they were teaching. The weird part is how organized everything remained despite the brutal cold. Daily schedules didn't disappear, they adapted. Morning fires needed tending, tools required constant maintenance, and food preparation never stopped. Children learned essential skills not through formal classes, but by being useful members of the community. Well, this system worked because everyone understood something we've forgotten. Winter wasn't dead time. It was preparation time. Every hide prepared, every tool sharpened, and every sled built during those frozen months meant better chances when spring hunting season arrived. These winter workshops created more than just equipment. They built the foundation for survival when warmer weather returned and the real adventure began again.